Yo, what up? This is D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. My oh my, we've had so much going on. For starters, in case you missed it, we've got a new addition to the Pardon Pie family, Tara Dublin. Make sure you go follow her on Twitter at Tara Dublin Rocks. Also, pick up a copy of her book while you're at it. Make her day, The Sound of Settling. A very fun and interesting read compared to the things we talk about on this podcast. But yeah, we're heading toward the do or die time for the 2024 election. Go ahead and hit up JoeBiden.com. Get that man like $1 a month or something. Help his campaign staff up and get prepared to try and save our democracy. And make sure to grab like one other person you know and tell them about the podcast. Make sure they subscribe and tune in every single week. We got a lot of things coming up for you this year. We need all the support that we can get. So if you do your part and help us grow our audience, we'll do our part and help elect Joe Biden in 2024 and save American democracy. And this is the Pardon the Insurrection podcast.
One, two, three, four.
Hey, this is D Knight.
This is Carol. This is Ty.
And you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. And this episode of Pardon the Insurrection is brought to you by our current and only new sponsor. Well, our new and current only sponsor, Sheets and Giggles.
And unlike all other previous sponsors of Pardon the Insurrection, this one is not a joke. I mean, the sponsorship is not a joke.
Yeah, it's for real.
Woo!
Colin, CEO of Sheets and Giggles, says he loved our pod.
Giggles loved our pod.
Yeah, and he was down to be a sponsor, along with his company, Sheets and Giggles. So if you're not familiar with Sheets and Giggles, they're like a bedding company, and bedding as in like beds that you sleep on or pillows and such. And
lay yourself down on some sheets and giggles. There you go. He's gonna love it.
Yeah, get you some sheets, get you some pillows. They're fucking fantastic. We haven't gotten ours yet, but they're on their way.
We're really excited.
I actually am kind of excited for these fucking sheets. He's not giving our podcast any money, but he is going to provide the goodies for us. He also, if you can imagine, if he's listening to our podcast and he loves this shit, which way he leans politically, which is fantastic. It's very rare that you find a CEO of a company who
makes pillows.
Well, here's one thing. So the left has their pillow guy, and now we have ours. So yeah, shout out to you, Colin, from Sheets and Giggles. Anyway, it's been a crazy week here, as per the usual. I mean, you know how the news goes. If you listen to this fucking podcast, you're like, God damn, every fucking week I tune into this fucking thing, talking about some crazy developments in some fucking Trump investigation or some fucking political development. Like, is the world fucking ending? I don't know. It snowed in LA a few weeks ago, so it's entirely possible. Yes, the world is probably ending soon.
I mean, every generation has thought the world was ending, and it will eventually, or soon.
Totally fair. In this case, I imagine that you, like many of us here, have been waiting and waiting and waiting
and waiting and waiting
to pop the champagne upon the announcement of former president, and I can't believe he was actually ever even a fucking president, Donald Trump, being indicted in the Manhattan DA's hush money case as it pertains to Stormy Daniels. So we had decided, I had decided, I was like, oh, we're going to hold off on the podcast as long as possible. It's like, because I know this indictment is coming. And
D wanted to do it. He's like, are you guys on Monday? He's like, are you guys ready for an emergency indictment episode? And I'm like, I mean, I guess. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So we missed you guys. So we just thought we'd pop back in, see what's going on. There's still plenty of other shit.
Well, there has been plenty of other shit, but I assumed it was coming. So I was like, oh, we'll just hold off on the podcast for that. Well, that's apparently been postponed until at least the earliest being next week. So
yeah, but D, did you know that former President Trump is actually subject to other legal troubles at this point?
Oh, who'd have guessed? I never could have imagined.
Why, yes.
Trump being the subject of investigations in multiple jurisdictions, who would have guessed?
For multiple speculated, unforeseen, well, to us, crimes.
I really appreciated your enthusiasm there. That was fantastic.
It might run the gamut. Probably does.
Oh, okay. So we'll quickly kind of
your lawyers testifying against you.
Let's try and quickly give a rundown of all the developments in the Manhattan DA case this week. It seemed as though last week that Bragg basically had an indictment lined up for this week over the fact that Trump had falsified records in the case of paying Stormy Daniels money to keep her quiet in 2016 on the eve of the election, a story that probably would have been fairly damaging to his campaign. Those payments were provided to Stormy Daniels by one former Trump lawyer, Michael Cohen. You might be familiar with that person. He took out was it a loan, refinance his mortgage? I don't know what the
home equity loan or something.
I'm not entirely certain the details of the loan he took out, but it was a personal loan that he used to pay Stormy Daniels up front, and then he was thereafter reimbursed through the Trump Corporation under the guise of legal services for the money that he paid to Stormy Daniels. And that's basically the general gist of what we expect the charges to be. Of course, like, we don't know exactly what it is that Bragg's been investigating here the last few months, because I feel like this case in particular is well, okay. So prosecutors in the Manhattan DA's office refer to it as the zombie case. And that's because this thing has long been dead, but it's been hanging around for years. I mean, Cohen himself, of course, received a 3-year sentence for it in 2018. And I say receive a 3-year sentence, but he didn't serve the entirety of those 3 years. Thank you, COVID pandemic. I'm not entirely certain what happened with charges as far as the Trump Organization is concerned. So if you're unaware, the Trump Organization, as of last year, was convicted of multiple criminal fraud charges that didn't result in any charges for Trump himself. I don't know why that particular criminal investigation was shelved as far as pursuing charges for Trump, but it seems as though Bragg decided not to pursue that and instead to go after these hush money payments instead. I don't know what the decision making process there was, but whatever, we'll take whatever we can get. But yeah, again, it seems that everything was lined up for Bragg to go to the grand jury, request an indictment of Trump, and the grand jury could vote either yay or nay on pursuing those charges.
They still haven't done it. They haven't been reconvened.
That is yet to happen. As far as we know.
See, it seems like one of the problem is the biggest source on the date of Trump's arrest came from not a very reliable source, Trump himself.
Yes.
He announced he would be arrested on Tuesday, and we, for some reason, took anything at his word. At this point, it just seems like, his best bet is to make everyone he thinks that we could get bored of waiting. We have each other. We'll never be too bored to wait for him to be indicted.
Okay, that's a wonderful place to start. Ty, why in the fuck do you think Trump took it upon himself to announce earlier this week that he would, in fact, be indicted on Tuesday? And also, given the scheduling issues of the way the grand jury works, so they convene on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Why of all days would Trump fucking decide that Tuesday would be the day?
Because he is a fucking asshole.
Oh, well, that explains it. In a discussion. No, that.
Period.
Could you elaborate
that
further?
Fucker, I cannot even.
Okay, look, we're sitting around. We're sitting around on Friday. We're like, all right, it's pretty clear indictments are coming. And then Trump takes it upon himself to announce that specifically Tuesday will be the day. I don't know. it doesn't appear that he got that information from any particular source. Like no one from the Manhattan DA's office communicated that information to him. I don't know. I guess he was just assuming an indictment was coming, and that was his best guess. Like whatever the fuck. The fallout from that, though, is like the media takes everything that he says so seriously, even when he clearly is lying or has no idea what the fuck is going on. Like, I don't understand. Like, I feel like we've been doing this we've been going in circles with this for years. Like, why do people take anything he says at face value?
I guess people are just, maybe we're just so anxious to hear it that we're willing to put aside our instinct telling us to analyze whether something is credible. Yes, I heard it. Did you hear it? Oh my God, I heard the same thing. We're so excited.
That's fair. I mean, he's usually not telling us anything we want to hear. So this was like a fairly new development. And
maybe just because he's fucking crazy. He's paranoid. I mean, he's paranoid.
Well, again, like it's
the
one
most
thing.
If it's justified,
it's one thing for him. Well, he should be paranoid. He's under multiple criminal investigations, as you so alluded to earlier. It's one thing to announce, hey, it's entirely possible I'll be indicted soon. Like this motherfucker picked the day, and like what's really crazy is the news organizations ran with it. And then, like, when it didn't happen, they were like, oh, well, what's going on in Bragg's office? It was like, no, you didn't get that from Bragg. You got that from Trump. Like, you fucking dumbasses are blaming the wrong source of the information here. But yeah, that was fairly wild.
It helps to maybe make people distrust Bragg. Maybe they're going for making him less popular. Like, oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? How come he didn't do it? Fuck that guy. And as everyone's saying, fuck that guy. And he's like, I'm slightly more popular now.
It's impossible to fact check Alvin Bragg on something Trump says, but that's what the media did. They were like, well, Trump said it was going to happen Tuesday and it didn't happen. Bragg was the problem. I don't know. But look, me personally, I did assume that either Monday or Wednesday on the days that the grand jury convenes that an indictment was coming. It did not come. I don't know the source of the delay. There's multiple speculations on Twitter as to what exactly the holdup is. We don't know if it's because of the testimony of Michael Cohen's former lawyer that Bragg had. I'm not entirely certain the process of how the Manhattan DA's grand jury works.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things. There's no point in us guessing. We're just gonna have.
It would be reckless speculation. That's the point. Like we could go in circles about what the delay is endlessly, and
maybe Alvin Bragg was like, "Fuck you! You try to cause protests on the day. It's gonna be a random day."
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing.
How dare you?
Trump and his expectation of being indicted called for mass protests across New York and possibly across the country in case he was indicted. And, I will admit there were a small number of individuals who gathered in New York on Monday this week to protest Trump's potential indictment. Unfortunately, they were outnumbered somewhere in the realm of 5-1 by press. There were. Are you okay, Carol? You got it together?
What? I can't just inconspicuously go get some cheese curds.
Okay, yeah. So multiple people showed up Monday in Manhattan to protest the indictment of Donald Trump. They were met by more members of the press than there were actual protesters.
It was something like 10-1.
Yeah, 5-1.
I think it was more like 10-1.
You think so?
I don't know. I read the accounts and it was like, I don't remember where I read it. Probably Twitter, where one reporter was like, I saw one person go to interview a protester, and it turns out they were both reporters.
Well, there you go. As per the usual, since 2016, the majority of Trump's army is actually the press. Failing to accurately portray his misdeeds and criminal activity, thereby leading to his success far more than his actual supporters. Talia, what you doing?
Nigga, I don't even know what the fuck.
Hey, watch your language. There are white people present listening to this podcast.
Okay. But
we can't talk like Carol.
We can't talk like you do.
Every time you say that, I can't participate for like 3 minutes.
Cover your ears, Carol. Just real quick. Ty,
I'm just sitting here eating cheese. I'm sitting here doing the whitest thing possible.
Ty, we can't talk like niggas on this podcast while there are white people present. There's two things we can't do. We can't talk like niggas, and we can't fight in front of white people.
Fight.
Which is also the problem with like Will Smith going on stage at the Oscars and slapping Chris Rock. Bro, you gotta do that in private or something.
Yeah.
Like we can't be engaged in physical
do
violence
that for the world to see, because them folks are gonna use it against you.
Like when white people fight, it's like, oh, they're impassioned. You know, right? When black people fight, it's like, oh, there's some hoodlums.
They're angry.
Yeah, there's some little hoodlums and criminals and whatnot, right?
Facts.
Also, every time black people fight, white people use it as a justification to hurt black people.
Well, that's where we were. Yeah, yes, you totally understand. I'm glad you get the dynamic, Carol. You've been hanging out with black people long enough that you understand how things work around here.
Carol gets it.
I also see how cops and shit work, you know? I've been watching the news long enough and seeing on Twitter to see people be like, well, if they really valued black life, they wouldn't shoot each other. It'd be like, what?
Yeah, like as if like white people don't shoot each other all the fucking time, right? I don't understand.
That's about not valuing any life. That's no lives matter.
Facts. No lives matter.
I don't know how we got here.
We have to amplify that on this pod.
That's the message of people who shoot people.
That is.
All right, we've come full circle here. So it was fairly incredible with news that Trump might be indicted this week. That police all across New York and elsewhere were prepared for massive protests. Not that I expect many people who support Trump to come out and violently protest, but I mean, I guess anything is possible after January 6th. But yeah, it's really interesting watching the police prepare for white people to riot. That doesn't happen too often. That's a rare occasion. You know it's bad when the police are getting prepared for white people. I'm sorry. That usually isn't their cup of tea. They're like, oh, unless it's like a major sporting event. Like if Philadelphia had won the Super Bowl, I feel like the police were very prepared for the white peoples in that event. But yeah, outside of that.
But Philadelphia did win the Super Bowl and they went ham as fuck.
Oh, yeah. You remember that? What year was that? 2018?
I'm old enough to remember that.
It wasn't that long ago. It was the Nick Foles. Took out Tom Brizzle when he was back playing in New England before he was a retired old man with 45-year-old man problems. With his kids and his wife leaving him and shit. I feel like it's heartbreaking. Like he spent all the time playing football only for his wife to leave him, and then now he got all this free time and he's single. Of course, I'm sure he won't be,
Did his wife leave him because he was, a gross, skeevy football playing hoe?
Well, I feel like, look, I don't want to get into the ends of.
Probably.
I don't want to get into the ends of.
Probably.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
Well, he pulled that thing where he would.
I feel so bad for him.
I'm sure Brady is doing fine. I'm sure he can pull them hoes. Tom Brady.
Are you talking about Tom Brady?
Oh, who are we talking about?
I don't know. Random football
Do
dude.
you even watch football, Carol? Do you like football?
No, but I
don't
know who
think
Tom
he does.
Brady is.
I don't think Carol does.
He's Giselle's husband or
Do you watch
ex-husband.
sports at all?
No, not really.
No, you're not a sports ball girl.
No, if the I sometimes watch the Olympics.
That's
some
like
of
the
it.
antithesis of watching sports.
I like figure skating. No, I do not enjoy watching sports. I enjoy
Alright.
I enjoy listening to music.
Did Nancy
and watching
Kerrigan deserve it?
Theater.
Did Nancy Kerrigan get what she deserved?
Wait, hold on.
The silver medal? No.
That is incredible that you went there. Hey, wait, speaking of skiing, isn't someone in like a civil trial over a skiing incident here?
Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, that's it. That is like the whitest of white things I've ever seen in my life.
He's gonna have trouble at wine tastings, they said, and the damages include that they're less charming or something like that.
Hey, Ty, can you come back? I wanted to ask you if black people ski. Because
There are some. Why aren't you asking me? I ski. You don't think I noticed whether there's black people there?
Okay, Carol, when you happen to visit the slopes, do you
Many fewer than there are white people. But yes, black people ski.
Okay, do they ski or do they snowboard? Because it's like two totally different endeavors.
We ski.
Do we?
We do.
I'm asking
That I
you.
didn't notice. I just noticed.
Me on the fucking slopes in what the hell is it?
Because I've been on a snowboard. I've never been in any skis. That's like beyond the realm of.
I see. You were asking about that difference. I didn't even notice what kind of vehicle, what their feet were in. But I used to like this t-shirt company. I can't remember what the fuck it was called, but they had funny shirts. Anyway, they had one of people skiing and it said, "Let's do the whitest thing ever." And it was just like white people on a chairlift. And that made me wonder if that was true. Then I started paying attention when I was skiing.
It's top 5 whitest things ever.
Whitest things
I can't necessarily. Okay, let's try and go down the list here.
It's on a white backdrop.
Ty, do you have a list of like the top 5 whitest things ever? Skiing has got to be on it, right?
Is sitting here and eating a bag of cheese white?
No, not black people like cheese too. Even
White people like chicken, D. This came up before we started recording. This was not out of nowhere.
Okay. All right, little behind the scenes here. I consumed a dinner of chicken, and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound very unusual. No, my dinner was like only chicken. Like it was literally chicken and nothing else. Chicken was the only food I consumed. Very, very Negro-ish. There you go.
So he told me that, and I was telling him that everyone likes chicken.
I mean, I'm not.
And stop trying to own chicken. Actually, I don't like it that much.
Wait, we keep.
I'm semi kidding. D is having a laughing fit.
Is it?
Oh, you look so cute. When you're trying not to laugh and giggling like a little scoop.
You're a hot mess. We've gone off the rails here. We're really doing Colin from Sheets and Giggles justice here with this episode of the podcast.
Hey, I made a jingle.
You did? Well, yeah. I'm proud of you.
I didn't even. For some of it, I used like a almost full singing voice instead of like a bullshit stone making stuff up voice.
Well, we appreciate your efforts there.
Anyway, I still want to talk about the other shit that Trump has going on against him right now.
Well, I mean, like that's an endless fucking list. So you have to.
Okay, we'll start with I guess continue with Mar-a-Lago documents case and the MAGA creed, make attorneys get attorneys. We've got a list of Trump attorneys here who are in the shit. You have Evan Corcoran, for whom the Department of Justice is trying to establish that Trump lied to him about his diligence in inspecting the misappropriated classified documents.
Fun times.
So anyway, was it the DC Circuit?
Yes.
Or appeal? No, DC Court of Appeal, federal, whatever. I think
One Judge Beryl Howell.
yes, this is her final ruling, right? This is like her final thing before she's out.
Yes,
Anyway.
she stepped down from heading the DC Circuit.
Anyway, Chief
as
Judge
of last Friday. Her last ruling was
the crime fraud exception had been met. The criteria for the crime fraud exception had been met, and Evan Corcoran could be compelled to testify because his legal services were used in furtherance of a crime. So
you nailed it.
He is coming into federal court today on information and belief, which means I read that on Twitter and I believe that it's true.
Well, it's Thursday as we're recording this. He is going to be forced to testify before Jack Smith's grand jury on Friday about the potential under the auspices.
He's got notes. We're going to see the notes.
Under the auspices that Donald Trump himself lied to Evan Corcoran about his retention of classified documents. He's been forced to already have turned over notes and what seems to be something along the lines of recordings or voicemails already. So yeah, Lordy, there are tapes. It's going to be fun times.
Make attorneys get attorneys.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You just imagine how bad you have to be at your job if you're a lawyer and then you have to end up testifying against your client. But I mean, I guess, look, that's a running theme here. Michael Cohen's done the same thing in Manhattan. Corcoran's done this, or is about to do this rather, in DC.
We also have Jennifer Little. Yes. I'm pronouncing it differently because I have nothing. I don't have a friend by that name with a different spelling.
Right now, Carol.
She often wore sweatsuits.
Wait,
I assume.
What'd you say, Ty?
She looks Jackie O. I love it.
Who, Carol?
Yeah.
I was Jackie O for Halloween one year in college. I made a little Chanel suit. It was pink.
Did you?
Wait, you got to put do you have a picture of that anywhere?
I'll find one.
Yeah.
I'll find it for you guys.
I mean,
but so we got this.
Make a really good Jackie O.
I did.
If your hair were just slightly longer, it's because of the bangs. If your bangs had grown out a little bit longer, you'd be perfect.
I think the bangs were a little bit longer at the time when I was 20 years old. I do pick most of my Halloween costumes based on what my hair makes me look like at the time.
Oh, that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How'd you land on Velma that one year?
I guess I had short hair. I don't know. And I couldn't think of anything else and had an orange t-shirt and a red skirt.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. So I don't know as much about Jennifer Little. I believe she was Trump's attorney in the Georgia election interference case.
Okay. From what I know of Little, she was
little I know.
Yeah, the little I know about Little, she was representing Trump in some other matters before Corcoran took over in the classified documents case. And she might have particular insight into what it is that Trump was. I don't even really what kind of communications Trump was having with the Department of Justice or otherwise before Corcoran took over the case once DOJ really fired up their investigation. I don't know exactly what evidence it is DOJ is seeking from Little, but I imagine again, to pierce attorney-client privilege, the bar must be pretty fucking high, especially in the case of a former president's former attorney. So
this is the Georgia she is his attorney in the Fulton County, Georgia investigation.
She was, but I think the DOJ is seeking her testimony about the classified documents. So look, again, Trump's got a number of legal issues, which means he has a number of different attorneys taking point on these different legal issues. But it's also incestuous. Not like, they're not having sex with their families, just like the overlap between the attorneys in all these cases.
Those attorneys are all friends. I don't know if they are, but I just looked her up and she looks like all of them.
Oh, you saw her picture. So you're like, oh, it's another Ahaba. But more blonde. Yeah, that's how that goes. Oh yeah, Ty, have you seen the picture of Little? She is she's definitely in the vein of Alina Habba, but with more highlights.
Oh dear.
Is that your type of thing?
She's a trial attorney.
Well, at least she's like qualified to actually do her job. She's not like representing parking garage companies in this particular.
Hey, let's hear it for Jennifer Little, who's about to have to testify against her client, and is so far as I can tell, Trump's heretofore most qualified attorney. Woo woo!
Oh,
okay. Look. So I've been
from the
listening.
2 lines I read about her.
I've been listening to multiple, talking heads and TV pundits and like former prosecutors turned pundit all week talk about like the nature of the hush money payments and like whether or not these are befitting charges for, the meeting the historical standard of the first prosecution of a former president. And for starters, like obviously, if you think about what it is that Trump was doing in 2016, like paying off Stormy Daniels, it's not about the sex, right? Because it does sound very salacious. It's like, oh, porn star, and he paid her money. Like that's not the issue here. It was like the laundering of using his company to launder money to pay off this person who could tank his presidential campaign, right? Yeah, you could be like, oh, well, he's, multi-millionaire, if not billionaire.
Wait, so why was Michael Cohen implicated in campaign finance fraud? I thought this was campaign money.
Okay, it was not campaign money, and that's the issue, right? Because the money was paid to Stormy Daniels to keep her silent. Otherwise, she would provide information to the public that would be harmful to his campaign. So it's basically a campaign contribution.
Thanks for letting me pretend I didn't know how to do that so we could explain it to the audience.
Right. So, again, like because the money was funneled through his corporation and there are limits on how much money corporations can provide to presidential campaigns, 130,000 being far above that limit, that would make it a campaign finance violation. But if you really think about what the value is of having Stormy Daniels silenced at that particular point in time, like late in 2016, after the quote unquote tape had dropped.
The grab him by the pussy tape. We all remember the tape.
I get embarrassed saying it though. It's just...
Well, I get embarrassed saying President Trump. So
yeah, that's totally fair. I understand. Right. So at that point, it's entirely possible that having had that information go public, it would have tanked this 2016 campaign and Hillary ended up president. But I mean, I guess another way you can look at the value of her silence is imagine if Hillary Clinton had been able to pay $130,000 to keep her emails from going public. Or that entire investigation from going public, right? We'd be in the second term of President Hillary Clinton right now, and that's like people will try to understate the seriousness of the crime because they're like, oh, it's just like it's only a big deal because of the salacious nature of what was going on with Trump and Stormy Daniels, but really, if you think about it, he basically bought himself a presidency for $130K.
Do you really think that that bit of information would have been what to sink him? Like his supporters have shown time and again that there's basically nothing he could do.
Well, at the time, yeah, I think it would have. Like
even in light of the grab him by the pussy comments, like, do you think people would have?
Let's rewind back to 2016. Do you remember what else happened on the same day that the grab them by the pussy tape was released to the public? Do you remember what followed that evening?
Was it Christopher Wray's speech?
No.
About the emails?
Yeah.
Not Christopher Wray. Damn it. The guy before that.
WikiLeaks.
Oh.
WikiLeaks dumped Hillary Clinton's emails into the public domain.
The actual emails?
Yeah, and that that took over basically the media coverage because, of course, the media was more obsessed with tanking Hillary Clinton than they were with holding an insane, narcissistic sociopath accountable. Yeah, so